Today's video is going to be on the Holley current transducers. So these little guys are pretty slick. They are going to show you the amount of amperage draw that happens over a electrical device. So I have 4 of these in this car, in my personal car, and I'm going to show you kind of how to set these up, what they do, and then them in action. So they come with 2 different amperage ratings. So the one sensor, 554171, is 50 on the low side and 200 amp on the high side. So these are actually dual range. So if you are running, you can run 2 separate inputs to your ECU. The connector is a 4-pin. It's got sensor 5 volt and then sensor ground, and they give you a pin out for it so that you know what goes where. I'm using 2 separate ones, 2 separate styles. So they have a 50 and 200, and then they also have a 30 and 350 amp. So I have one of these on the wire from the alternator, one of them on the wire that feeds the race pack smart wire, so I can view overall current draw, amperage draw across the entire smart wire. And then I have one on each bank of coils. So the reason for the bank of coils is really the whole reason I got these. You can narrow down a electrical problem if it was a misfire or something. So if you see a high peak inrush of current, you can narrow it down to that bank of cylinders across your coils. So these things are pretty slick. Again, 2 different part numbers, 554170 and 554171. I'll put the link to both of them in this video. The installation is pretty straightforward. The pins, you can use a MetroPack connector crimper for them, just like every other pin that's out there for Holley, but these pins are specific to this connector. And then, the little wire condoms. So you slip a little condom over there before you put her in, The transducers are pretty straightforward. As you can tell, there's a hole in the middle. So shove the wire through the hole, all right? And then these are plus and minus, okay? So these are directional. So depending upon how you have it mounted on the wire, it will give you a negative or a positive reading. So wire is coming in this way and you're drawing amperage on this side of it, then you're going to have a negative or a positive reading. If you flipped it over, you'd have a negative reading. So I have 2 of them installed in the car right now. One is over the alternator wire, which we're not going to see because the car doesn't run. But the other one is over the top of the smart wire. I'm going to show you how to set these up, and then when they are logging in a strip chart or a live view or a data log, what to look for. So again, these things, pick which one you want for what your ideal or what you think that your amperage draw is going to be. And you can set these up minus 30 to plus 30 or minus 350 to plus 350 amps. So you obviously wouldn't want to use the low range output on an alternator because your alternator should put out more than 30 or 50 amps. Where your your coils aren't going to need 200 amps of power, so don't use this on coils for 200 amps. So just pick whichever range you're looking for. You can, I haven't tested it yet, but I'm assuming you could probably shove 2 different wires through it and monitor both. But you would have to have pretty distinct differences in amperage draws across the 2 of them. So we'll go over to the car and take a look at what it does. So for setup, you'll go to your pin map or your input-output ICF, and you'll have to create an input. So this car's got a bunch of inputs in it. And this is one that I created for smart wire current, okay? So come on over here, enable it. You have to create 5 volt and then configure. And Holley's got it set up for, they've already got it in their drop downs. So this is set up for Holley 350 amp. And this is going to be viewing the entire field of everything that's going to be going through the smart wire. So if you think about it, you've got a 700 amp range, and a 700 amp range is not going to give you great resolution at 2 to 3 amps. So you're going to see some jumping around in the strip chart and in the live view. So we're online, and we'll go to the live view, and right over here, we've got, you notice smart wire current, right? So remember I said it's all dependent upon how you've mounted it. And right now we're at, minus right around one amp. All I've got on right now is just the smart wire. So it's not actually powering anything. It's just actually turned on. So when I turn on, I'm powering the ECU, but as you can see, it doesn't take much amperage. I'm just going to turn the dome lights on, and you're going to see minus 10 amps. So this isn't really super important, because if a dome light goes out, you're going to make it. You're going to be all right. But this car is being put together for drag week, and you street car guys, as stuff starts to deteriorate, current draw starts to increase. So water pump, radiator fan, whatever it may be, as it starts to get beat up a little bit and wear out, you're going to start drawing more amperage. You can actually kind of catch yourself prior to a problem. So this car again is going to be drag week oriented, so I want to be able to catch stuff before it happens, so I'm not stuck on the side of the road. Now a little bit larger jump, which is going to be harder to see, because you're going to see a large inrush here of voltage or of amperage, and then it'll settle off. But I'm going to hit the transmission cooler fan. So you saw a little blip there. Well, in a data log, you can, pause all that and take a look at it. So now we're going to look at a strip chart that shows you a little bit better when we're in the garage goofing off. So, sorry, I already have it open. All right, so we're going to hit play. As you look up here, I've configured this strip chart to show me what I wanted to see. And if you want to edit your strip chart, you would just go into edit views here, and it's just like your data logger. You'll click and drag and drop stuff off. So you just clear what you don't want, and then grab whatever you want and throw it on in there. So obviously for electrical testing, which is what I'm doing, this is pretty irrelevant to have RPM because it's not running. So if we didn't want RPM, we would just click, drag, and drop it off. When you're done, hit OK. It'll prompt you and ask you if you want to save it. You'll hit yes. So now, as you can see, we've got everything in our drop down that we want, right? So we're in electrical test, which is what I just made. And you can see we've got a little bit of dancing right around 1 amp for a smart wire current. So as we hit over here, I'm going to hit the button for the transmission cooler, the trans cooler fan, and you'll see what happens. And we're going to pause it. So right here, we've got a pretty decent sized inrush of amperage, and then it levels off. So this in a strip chart isn't super valuable information, but it will absolutely help you diagnose an issue, say from spark blowout or whatever it may be when you have them around coils, or if you're like me and you want to be able to monitor everything, you put them all over the place. So with this, we see we've got a big inrush, but this is where we've settled off at. So when we settle off here, this is the amperage that we're going to consider our norm. And if we see the norm starting to grow, right, so there's more of a draw, then we know we may have a problem. Maybe we got a loose ground. Maybe these cars shake, so maybe something, shook loose, and it's something that you can address before you get stuck on the side of the road. For a little bit bigger of a demonstration, I'm going to kick the cooling fans on. I've got dual spall fans. These things they're pretty ridiculous. So it's about to get loud, but you're going to see a large inrush, and then it'll settle off. So as you can see, here's a huge inrush of amperage draw to kick both fans on, you know, wide open. And if you notice up here, this red line, this is your battery voltage, right? So battery voltage also dropped. When the, you know, you'll see typically when you turn your fans on some of the older cars, your lights dim a little bit for a split second. This is why there's a large inrush of amperage. So if we see a trend, if I'm driving around and I see, man, this thing's getting hot, it may be because the fan's dead, and we would be able to tell if the fan was trending to die or if it was just some sporadic new thing. Maybe it's unplugged, maybe it's, you know, just the ground came off or whatever it may be. So I actually really like these things a lot. The use for them is pretty plentiful. It's just you have to kind of think about what you feel is going to be useful. So when the alternator is running, it's going to show us what kind of amperage the alternator is putting out. And if we start to overspin the alternator, because this engine's going to rev to 9,000, I feel like I got the pulley ratio right, but if it's wrong, if I over rev this thing, I'm going to tell if I burnt up an alternator or not. No more guessing about it. It's all right here in your logs. So these are the current transducers. I think they're pretty slick. Buy them, don't buy them, use them, don't use them. Either way, this is what they are. See you guys.